Hi, I'm Jim Bergeron, pastor at Holy Cross Lutheran Church in Houston, Texas, and this is the sermon for Transfiguration Sunday in the A series. Transfiguration is nothing more than the miracle of hearing with new ears and seeing with new eyes. Suddenly finding yourself in the sweet spot. An athlete might say, in the zone. A person of spiritual understanding might say, a moment in eternity. Time stands still, and the common and usual become holy. And well, it was a normal day, and then words can't describe. It is when, instead of seeing the obvious grit in life, we see the pearl being formed. We have a vision of what the acorn is going to be. It's where the common, which really is holy, is seen for the miracle that it is. You can practice for these moments. Sometimes I've given homework in confirmation classes, an exercise in shifting perception. Confirmation kids are in an awkward developmental stage. Everything is changing. Their bodies, their relationships to parents and peers, their frustrating drive for independence and their need for dependence still. One of the words that I've heard them say to describe their experience is annoying. It's a great word. I understand. During times of big changes and displacement, sometimes people, places, and things are annoying. Sometimes we're annoying to ourselves. The homework simply is identify two really annoying things in your life this week. Try to see God's image or God's action in those annoying things. Ask yourself, what could God possibly be saying to me here? When you do this, your life will start feeling better and more righteous, more workable. Witness the examples in today's gospel lesson. Jesus, the daily travel companion, becomes someone divine and unspeakably transcendent. His dusty, sweat-stained, road-worn clothes become dazzling white. Elijah and Moses, representing the law and the prophets, seem to be dead and hopeless issues to the disciples in their disintegrating and corrupt progressive Roman culture. Nobody cares about history, Moses and Elijah, and yet with Jesus, they're alive, still vital, still important and more relevant than ever. Peter, terrified and confused, becomes Peter, listening to God's wonderful validation of Jesus from a translucent cloud. Not able to see, they must hear the voice of God. Listen to him. In our own worlds, transfiguration is constantly available as we begin to hear God's affirmation through the ears of faith. Like Peter, James, and John, we get distracted with impressive visual events. Who can't wait to freeze frame the moment on a clear, dazzling mountaintop day with an all-star cast for a holy performance? Who doesn't want to go back to that ecstatic moment and replay it nostalgically? It is the addict's dilemma. The first high was so astounding that the person spends a lifetime doing it over and over and over again, trying to repeat or replay or relive what is a one-time only experience. That poor person will judge his whole life on the false scale of one impressive, temporary event. All other living will be discounted. I helped a young couple once with their wedding ceremony, which was to occur on 14,000-foot Notch Mountain overlook of an even higher peak, Mount of the Holy Cross. They had a dream of a wedding day that was transfiguring. Now, the location of the ceremony would be 4 miles and 4,000 feet above the last trailhead that you could drive to. Then you had to hike on in, 4 hours. We arranged to meet at the summit at noon, since they were planning to camp on the trail overnight. I started out briskly, breathing rhythmically to the soaring guitar of Joe Satriani playing Flying in a Blue Dream over my headphones. To my left was a steep drop-off, and the sun, struggling to pull itself free from the Gore Mountain range on the near horizon. At 9 o'clock, my dog, Cleo, went crazy, darting all about and snarling and barking. I was on high alert, adrenal glands cramping. I thought she had rousted a bear. Thank goodness it was only the wedding party. Still 3,000 feet from the summit. Just waking up. From that point, it took 6 hours. A lot of cussing and yelling and grumbling. And whose idea was this, anyway? Comments. Moments of anger and frustration. Well, I was convinced the ceremony, if we get there, will never happen. They stopped often to catch their breath. And once they got some oxygen in their brain, they said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I love you. Let's get moving." Remarkably, they listened to each other. We got to the top for the ceremony, actually just in time for the daily afternoon high-altitude thunder and lightning storms. It was a dangerous time and place to stand on a bare mountaintop, but I have to say the visuals were amazing. But even better, God spoke, and they listened. And they're in their third decade of married life, after an amazing trip down the aisle to their ceremony. Sandbirds at the beach. What a nuisance. Annoying. A month after the beach trip, you'll find a hitchhiking sandbird in an article of clothing that you've already washed several times. A poet will look at this little marvel and say, look how nature attaches itself to humanity and spreads its genetic material, sandbird love, throughout the world. The engineer looks at that little spur and its tenacity with his microscope. 11 years later, he's come up with this new thing called Velcro. Not quite as good as a sandbird, but close. Transfiguration's possible all the time. Transfiguration is cool. It's a perceptual shift away from where you are right now. That's all. The loss of joy in daily life is attended by fixed perceptions instead of fluid, listening assessments of the world around us. One of the reasons for trouble in relationships is that we get stuck seeing one another in only one way. This annoying mannerism, that way of saying things, that one issue or big incident becomes the gold standard for future interactions. Prognosis is not good. We see one thing, we quit listening for more. God says, listen to him. Old assumptions, reflex perception, ignores transfiguration. The Man with Two Brains is a Steve Martin comedy. He plays a brain surgeon, Dr. Michael Hafuraher. Actually, throughout the movie, people try and pronounce his name and never get it. He's a grieving widower, falling in love with a wicked temptress, played by sexy Kathleen Turner. He stands before his late wife's picture on the wall and asks for her guidance from beyond in the heavenly realms. Just show me a sign. Should I marry her or not? Just a little sign. Suddenly a cold wind blows, and a voice wails, "No, no, don't do it." The wall cracks and the portrait spins. The furnishings are crashing all about, like a poltergeist on crystal meth. Suddenly all is still, and Dr. Hafuraher dusts himself off and says, "Well, since you won't show me a sign, I guess it's okay to marry her." And he goes on his clueless way. Like Simon Peters, the transitory vision is very compelling. The internal narrative attempts to control reality, but it's God's reality. It will change. Listen to Him. Prayer is listening, not making speeches to the debate coach. To enjoy transfiguration, we need to rise above the limitations of human visions and ideas, to see things as they really are. When someone does not greet you, don't imagine that he's your enemy. When you have the sniffles, don't decide it's pneumonia. When you're having difficulties with someone, don't anticipate that you'll never hear each other's point of view. Stop imagination in order to live happily in the transfigured moment. Listen to reality and see the present. Until I'm grateful for the little gifts that I have been given, God can't trust me with the great gifts He wants to give. The glory and grace of the Transfiguration is that God has placed us in the midst of constant opportunities to perceive His world emerging in wonder and joy. Listen to Him as He renames and redeems our lives. In the great classic, Man of La Mancha, Don Quixote lives in this strange world, seeing things no one else sees, fighting battles no one else understands. Don't we all do something like that? And through all of this, he's in love with Aldonza the whore, whom he devotedly calls my lady Dulcinea. She treats this title, this name, with dismissal. She can't understand herself that way. She faithfully ministers to Quixote as he dies, and after his passing, someone addresses her as Aldonza, and she gently corrects them. My name is Dulcinea. That is who she becomes. Quixote's devotion and love transfigured her life and redeemed her, and she listened to him. Jesus' devotion and love transfigures, redeems our lives. Listen to Him. Amen.